The nation's economy is expected to be one of the key issues during President Biden's State of the Union address. The speech comes at a pivotal moment for the president. According to a new CBS News poll, 62% of Americans disapprove of his handling of the economy. The president plans to focus on efforts to lower costs for American families in his address. For more, I want to bring in Mick Mulvaney. He is the former director of the U.S. Office of Management and Budget and, of course, the former acting White House chief of staff under President Trump. Mick, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see you again.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure. So more than half of the people in our CBS News poll say they are concerned about their ability to pay for basic things like gas and groceries. This is not new. It's been, on the forefront of people's minds for months now. President Biden has talked about it many times in the past. What can he say tonight to offer reassurance? Something different?
Yeah, it's a really good question because he's got a battle that he's got a balancing act that he has to do tonight. He has to be able to tell people that he's done a decent job, that he's had some accomplishments, and that they were right to elect him in the first place. And at the same time, he has to be able to do that while still recognizing that people are suffering and not doing as well as they want. That's a very difficult balancing act for any politician to do. If he focuses on a couple of things that he could do to help the economy, maybe deregulate a little bit. We could talk about energy policy a little bit. I think there's some ground for maybe some bipartisanship there, especially in light of what's happening in the Ukraine. But he's going to be walking a very narrow tightrope, especially if he does want to come across tonight as a national leader and not just a leader of his party. Keep in mind, any president looks at tonight as the biggest night of the year. It's taken them at least 4 and probably 6 weeks to write this speech. And they're changing it probably as recently as right now because of what's happening in the Ukraine. So it's absolutely critical. And if he decides he wants to be the national leader, now is the time to do it. Be curious to see what he does an hour from now.
Well, the country is also seeing a 40-year high in inflation. Is there anything more that the Biden administration could be doing to bring it down that it hasn't already?
Yeah, yes and no. Here's the issue. Inflation, loosely defined, is too much money chasing too few goods. And on the money side, the government has kicked in almost $6 trillion since COVID. Much of it has been necessary in order to avoid a recession or a depression. I get that, but they've thrown all of this money into the economy, so there's more money. At the same time, there's fewer goods. Not only because of COVID, which is certainly real, not only because of Ukraine, which is certainly real, and the sanctions are going to have a major impact, but also because some of the policies that the Biden administration has put in place, again, most specifically on energy. So I think if he only addresses one side of the equation tonight and says, look, I'm going to help you folks by having the government give you more money, there's going to be a backlash because enough people will figure out that's actually making inflation worse. He needs to focus tonight as well on both sides, not only getting more money out to people's pockets, but also getting more goods and services out in the economy. Again, a tough balancing act. Inflation is a very difficult issue for any politician to deal with.
And I know November always seems so far away from tonight, but this really is a chance for him to start setting the table for what he's going to say to try to help those Democrats who have tough fights. How do you think the current state of the economy may impact those midterm elections later this year?
It depends. Obviously, we are several months away from the election, but in many ways, we're not. In many ways, this is going to be his last chance to talk directly to swing voters. It's just getting harder and harder to reach those folks. I expect the viewing audience tonight, both on TV and online, to be historic in large part because of Ukraine. So he has a chance now to speak to those independent voters. If he's going to start changing the direction that it looks like his party is heading into November, tonight is the night to not only start that, but take several steps along the way. Again, going to be difficult for him to do. This is the type of opportunity that every president wants. But if they don't do a good job, it's very, very difficult to fix that damage between now and the midterms.
I'm so glad that you brought up Ukraine because I know that you have been talking about this in other venues, and it's something that the president has to tackle head on tonight. A majority of Americans are concerned about the Russian invasion and how it could impact their own wallets. I mean, President Biden himself has warned that this will be costly. And he says that the current sanctions were designed to hit the Russian economy, not the U.S. economy. But again, he has warned Americans this will come at a price. So what kind of cost can people expect? How can he walk that fine line? And do you think the current sanctions are enough to stop Putin?
The last question is no, it's probably not. Keep in mind, as of this morning, I haven't looked here late in the afternoon. As of this morning, Russia's largest bank had not been sanctioned yet. The bank associated with Gazprom had not been sanctioned. So there's many, many more things that he could do. But yeah, listen, I helped write 4 of these things. And if I was sitting in the White House right now, if I'm Ron Klain, who's now the chief of staff, I'm looking around for opportunities to tie the two things together. How do I get my domestic situation righted and I get Ukraine moving in the right direction as well? And it strikes me, and I think it came up in your earlier discussion with those previous 2 guests, energy policy could be a sweet spot tonight. If he comes out tonight and says something along the lines of, look, I'm as green as anybody, and I believe in climate change and sustainable energy and all those types of things, but it's really hampering our efforts and hurting our friends overseas right now who are still tied to Russia. I'm going to do some things for the next 30, 60, 90 days, maybe 6 months to increase domestic production so that we can help our European friends, kneecap the Russians a little bit. He might get overwhelming bipartisan support tonight on the floor. Yes, the left wing of his party would object to that, but the centrist Democrats and maybe even some liberal Democrats would approve that because of the foreign policy implications. If he gets an opportunity to get a bipartisan standing ovation tonight on something like energy policy that speaks both domestically and overseas, that is a win for Joe Biden. I'd be curious to see if he goes there.
Me too. We will be listening. Thank you so much, Mick. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.